Yeah, well, I'm really thrilled to have Laura Steck here today, and maybe in the interest of time, I'll just read the little blurb here, but we've had her, she's spoken to us several times in the past over the years, and I just happened to bump into her on a trail a few months ago, and she graciously said she'd be willing to give us another talk, so I'm glad I was on that trail that day, so thanks for coming, Laura. Okay, so her talk is Shopping and Cooking for Time, Taste, Cost, and I sort of added, and the planet. Join chef and author Laura Steck from Kaiser Permanente and the Food Party for a crash course on deliciously healthful and helpful tips and tricks. You'll learn day-to-day ways to thrive in your kitchen, including why to keep water as far away from vegetables as possible, knife sharpening skills, quick cooking tips, and how to cook for one. Laura will also address some health people and planet connections from her book Cool Cuisine, Taking a Bite Out of Global Warming, which is available for sale today from Laura for $20. If you want to get a copy of it, she has copies up here. And then a mini cooking demo with samples for the audience completes the presentation. So please give Laura Steck a warm welcome.
Hello, everyone. You have figured out that today is daylight savings time, which is good. I figured it out. That was probably the most important thing, Brian. You did not remind me. So thank God. My mother. What's that? The other half of the crowd will be here. Exactly. Well, they'll at least be here for the food, which is terrific. Again, my name is Laura, and it's a pleasure to be here again. I think the last time I was here, we had given a presentation at the Commonwealth Club, and we brought it here first about the new economy in the food system. And so the last two talks, I don't remember what the first one was about at all, probably about the book itself, which the book that I wrote with my co-author, Dr. Eugene Cordero, is Cool Cuisine, Taking the Bite Out of Global Warming. And it's about the connections between food and the environment, specifically global warming. So it seems like wherever that gentleman was that made the presentation earlier, this is a good way for you to take social action. In fact, one of the most important things you can do for the planet actually begins on your dinner plate. But today we're actually talking a little bit more about just the general how to cook and what motivates us to cook. And so we'll do about 20 minutes or so with the PowerPoint, and this thing really does get caught up in your hair and stuff. So if I get kind of weird, it's like this thing is pushing. And I don't have my little clicker today, so I'm going to have to stand here and just do it manually. So a lot of this talk comes from different places. It comes from our book. It comes from the Culinary Institute of America, of which I have been a student of many years. It also comes from some research from Harvard University and a book called The End of Overeating by David Kessler, MD. And we're going to talk about what feeds me and what nourishes us. And we're also going to look quickly at how the brain is affected by that. There's so many interesting things going on in the brain right now. In fact, even this morning I was listening to KQED talking about the Asian guy who, the PhD scientist, Michio Kaku. Oh yeah, I was just listening to him again today. There's so many interesting things happening with the brain right now, and it's an exciting time to be alive that medical science has finally gotten us to this point. So I'll review a little bit about that in relationship to food. Now, does anyone remember this chart? Have I ever showed you folks this listing of graphics? Okay, so this comes from the CDC, the Center for Disease Control, and basically we're going to take a trip through the United States relationship with food and eating and obesity. Start going from 1986 to 2008 or 9. I don't know why the data for 10 and 11 and 12 isn't out yet. I was just on the website yesterday. They seem to be changing the way that they're doing the studies, but at least we can track it for a number of years. And we're going to show how obesity levels have changed in the United States. So here you'll see that we've got no data for the states that are in white, and then here for the lighter blue, less than 10% of the population is suffering from obesity levels, which would be you have your body percentage of fat, you're 30 plus pounds overweight, basically, 30 to 40 plus pounds overweight, less than 10% of the population, and then 10 to 14% of the population showing, again, a BMI of greater than 30 or over 30 pounds overweight for the 5'4" person. So let's just see what happens as we go through the years. So here we see a new category listed, right? 15 to 19% of the population in 1992, starting to increase. 1996, boy, my home state of Michigan seems to keep showing up here as 20% of the population becomes overweight or obese. Certainly the South. And here, and that's Arkansas, right? Is that Arkansas? That's Mississippi? Mississippi, 25% in 2001. So, boy, we jumped from 2004, I don't think one of the slides transferred. So look at this in 2004. And here we have a whole other thing. We go into 2008. Is this the last one? I'm not sure. Let's see. Oh, here's 2000. Okay, we got 2010. We do have that one. And I think this is a great slide. We've got a squirrel here. You might not be able to see him on a couch, on a psychiatrist's couch. And he said, when I learned you are what you eat, I realized I was nuts. What is wrong with us? How can we possibly be a country of this, right? They say that 2/3 of the population is either overweight or obese, quickly moving to three-quarters of the population. Now, we did get some good news this past year, right? We didn't get fatter as a nation, we stabilized. So we haven't gotten any better, but we haven't gotten any worse, and that's good. You know, why is this? Well, I think it's pretty easy to look at. I mean, basically go into the grocery store, and what are you seeing in the aisles of the grocery store? You see a lot of colors and a lot of boxes and a lot of bags and a lot of flour and a lot of sugar and a lot of preservatives and all this stuff, and it's like, what happened to the real food? You know, where's the real food? In the grocery store aisle. And, you know, we all grew up, some of us, let's see, am I the youngest person in the room? No, you're probably younger than me, yeah. So we all, well, you will see, you're even going to be worse. Look at that guy now, he looks healthy, but in 10 years from now, he is going to look like crap. Because, oh, sorry, I didn't mean to see the future, right? That's one of the things about human brain. If we see the future, supposedly that makes us human, or that makes us, you know, we have set our society up to basically feed us food that doesn't really feed us any longer. We've taken our wheat and we bastardized it into something that's 5 times different than what it originally was, so that a lot of us don't even recognize it. It's more different. Somebody said it's more different than some of the chemicals that we put into the cleaning agents and things, as far as what it used to be and what it is now. I mean, our wheat is a foreign substance to a lot of us, to most of us, because it's just they've changed it so much so that it can actually grow more wheat, right, in industrial agriculture, and that seems to be causing us much havoc. We've gotten very good at making things very sweet and very salty, and we've gotten used to eating all those foods so that we're not really even thinking that these things aren't the right taste. And as we eat this food, we get used to it and say this is the way it should be, when really what we need to do is kind of go back to whole natural foods, but that's tough. Okay, so what is our problems as United States of Americans? Well, we have 4 main problems in our diet. One, we eat too much red, and this is per Harvard University. We eat too much red meat. We eat too much salt. We eat too many refined carbohydrates. And we eat too much in general. So here's a chart, which is interesting, and it basically shows what we should be eating and what we want to be limiting. And as we notice, the things that we should be eating more of, we are underneath what we should be eating. And the things that we should be eating less of, we are way over the limit. And when we say SOFAs, that's sugars, fats, and salts. And so we are added, we're just way off base. Now, when we look specifically, oh, you can't really see that well. There's no way we can dim the lights up on this side, can we? It just right in front of here might be good. So there we go, that's a list about it. So estimated sources of calories in the United States diets. Where is our calories coming from? And if you look at this chart, I mean, basically half of our calories are coming from sugars or refined grains or refined carbohydrates. A little bit of protein and a lot of fat, but for the most part, let's look at that a little closely. What really does that look like? So if we go into that sugars, we have a chart here that shows, and this is again from Harvard, pulling it from 2011, where our energy sources from the sugars alone go, from these refined carbohydrates. What are we really eating? And if you look closely at this chart, the only thing that's really healthy on it is the beer. I mean, this is what make up a good portion of our diet today. And when it comes to sodium, where do we get the most of our sodium from? Does anyone have? What's that? A processed food is definitely 77% of the sodium we eat comes from processed food, which means that if you have a sodium issue, you don't really have to worry too much about cutting out sodium when you cook. You have to worry about cooking, right? Because you're in control in the kitchen. So you can add a little salt to your food, which salt enhances the natural flavors of food. It's a wonderful thing. But it seems that we do the exact opposite. We keep ourselves no salt at home, right? Then we hate the fact that we eat, we don't know how to cook in the first place. And now our knives are dull, so we don't want to cook. And then we have to change our brain structure in order to cook, which is something that I've recently discovered, which is a lot of reasons why we don't start. But then when we do, we end up with a product we don't like because we didn't put any salt on it, and that would be one of the easiest ways. And then we go out to eat, which is where all the salt's coming from. Now, when it comes to processed food, the interesting thing is what food do you think has the most salt, is contributing the most salt to our diet? Yeah, those are good guesses, but actually it's bread. It's all these refined carbohydrates. Salt is the main portion in mass-produced bread products in order for the proteins to react accordingly with the gluten so that it actually rises. So bread is a very large contributor to our sodium in our diet. And what's also interesting, I don't think we'll get this any other place, is that if you have Morton salt and kosher salt, right, so Morton salt we all know, kosher salt in that red box, right? You have double the sodium in a teaspoon of Morton salt than you would in a teaspoon of kosher salt. So that's interesting for its own right, right? Get rid of the Morton salt, not only because it tastes terrible, and if you compared the two tastes, I'll be right with you, if you compared Morton salt to kosher salt or Morton salt to anything, you would never eat Morton salt again. But also because you're basically using double the sodium. Yes? Salt-free bread at Trader Joe's. And it's good. Okay, so what do we say about all this? We as people in the United States, well, 71% of us want better choices. Half of us want to eat healthier in restaurants. Well, 2/3 of us say we eat healthy. 3/4 of us know that family discussion is good for increasing awareness. But what do we do? 1/4 of us actually choose healthy things when we go out. 1/5 of us eat breakfast 5 or more times a day. 1/5 of us eat a healthy lunch. 40% of us a dinner. And only half of us with children actually talk to our kids, which is one of the most important things that they say contributes to healthier children. So this talk isn't about kids, but basically the three most important things you can do for your children or for your children's children, if they're all like, what do we do with our kids? One, you want to talk to them about food, and you want to get them involved with food. I'm a blogger for the Almanac, the Weekly, and the Mountain View Voice. I think there's something in that, actually. And I'm going to be doing an article about that, because everyone who's raised kids and hasn't basically got them into making a meal at least once a week, shame on you. I don't have any kids, so you can't blame me. But my sister, she's got kids, they're 12 years old, and she's still running around taking care of them like they can't pick up a knife, or they're, these people, mothers that are just like, oh, here, we're going to wait on you hand and foot. I think you ladies are nuts. Get these kids in the kitchen and cooking, because heaven knows they need to find out about it. So it's talking to kids, it's taking the screen out of the bedroom, and it is cutting down or reducing the sugar-sweetened beverages are the three most important things with kids. So what motivates us as eaters? Well, it's not just one thing, and this is important whether we're trying to change our own diet or whether we're trying to change somebody else what they eat. Basically, we have to think about what kind of time we have to actually execute the meals. How much do these things cost? Who are we cooking for? And lastly, this concept of taste or values, which is, do I value my health? Do I know how it's connected to the environment? Do I have a cultural basis behind me? Am I coming from, am I an Asian or German, or there's some kind of, do I value food safety? Do I value food justice? Do I value cooking? Do I know how to cook, right? So if we look at values in relationships to the environment, which is on the heels of the gentleman who talked about 350.org. I wrote a book. It's called Cool Cuisine, Taking the Bite Out of Global Warming. I wrote it with an atmospheric scientist. We propose that global warming could be the best thing to happen to the culinary world in a long time. Why? Well, because the problems associated with the industrial food system and what we call the machine cuisine, as many of us know, because this has been in the media for a long time, our book came out in 2008, for heaven's sakes. The problems associated with machine cuisine are so detrimental to basically the flavor of our food that they're going to push us to solution. And the solutions in agriculture certainly start with the soil. And we're going to look at that just in a second. And in the end, we'll have better tasting food. Because we don't raise our food now for taste. We raise it for travel. It's all about making money. It's not about tasting good. And maybe it has something to do with health, but it's usually they're going to add something back into it to make it healthy. Well, if we look at this from a recipe perspective, how does food affect the environment, specifically global warming? Well, our book is, I'm a chef, so you have to do a little bit of recipes, and we got 50 in the book, but here's our first one. This is a recipe for a gallon of gas. And in order to make a gallon of gas, you need 196,000 pounds of plants and roots and leaves and everything you can possibly cram into 40 acres of land. And you need to harvest that all before it rots and stuff it into the ground. What is it, 6,500 feet down into the ground. And you have to put a big rock over it. And then you set your kitchen timer for 1,000,000 years. And you come back and you have the makings of 1 gallon of gas. So what does that mean well, basically we have taken the most common, abundant resource on the planet, which we used to grow our food with, which was called soil, and we replaced it with one of the rarest, most expensive, dwindling resources on the planet, which is called oil. Why? Because, we use a lot of oil-based fossil fuels, fertilizers and pesticides and things to fuel the global warming diet, is what we call it. And in doing so, we've taken away this process of cover cropping and composting and things that actually add to eating in season and add to the soil. And here from the Dell Institute, we have 2 soils. and just a 4% difference in the amount of carbon they have in the soil. And you'll notice that, with just, carbon would be the potato skins and the banana peels and all those things. It really makes a big difference. And what's interesting is in a tablespoon of healthy, alive soil, there are 1 billion microorganisms that live in it. 1 billion in a tablespoon of healthy soil. And they need food, and they need to be taken care of, and the way that they do that is through composting and cover cropping, and it's not through dumping a bunch of oil-based fertilizers, which basically kills the bugs, and then all the good things that those microorganisms bring us. So in order to fuel the global warming diet, annually it takes about 22 billion pounds of oil-based fertilizers and 2 trillion pounds of pesticides every year that get dumped onto the United States of America to grow mostly the grain to feed our cows, right, which is what a lot of the agriculture is. And those numbers are so massive, it's like, what is 22 billion pounds of fertilizer? How can we manage it? Well, if we stacked a bunch of cows on top of each other, we would need a pile of 18.3 average size cows all pile on top of each other just to get to 22 billion pounds of fertilizer, because the average cow weighs 1,200 pounds. So, oh my lordy, I don't even know how that makes sense. And as you look at this, was one of the charts from my co-author, Dr. Eugene Cordero, again, atmospheric scientist at San Jose State. You see that we're doing an auto diet comparison. So we're talking about how do we help global warming, how do we reduce greenhouse gases? And you'll notice here the top shows different kinds of trucks and cars. So we've got a Ford truck, Chevrolet, and Toyota. And then looking at different kinds of diets, that would be a high animal beef diet, a medium animal beef diet, and a low animal beef diet. And if you look at them and kind of squint your eyes, they kind of look exactly the same. Which means that, we can definitely rag on people about what they drive, but if you really want to additionally, or instead, maybe you want to drive your Hummer, well then you become a vegan, right? Is a good way to realize that what you eat is very influential to greenhouse gas emissions and to global warming. Oh, yeah, so I added this in. So I blog for the Almanac. It's called The Food Party, and the Menlo Park and the Palo Alto Weekly and Mountain View Voice just did, and it's online right now. It's called, the blog I wrote is called is moo spelled backwards, and it basically goes into more of this topic of how beef is affecting the environment, how beef is a problem for the environment, and also how beef can be a solution for some of these issues too. So, and there's a lot in the news right now about cows. Actually, the Bay Area is in a very, we've just had quite a score. Dave Evans from Marin Sun Farms is buying Petaluma-based Rancho slaughterhouse. Folks hear about that at all? Very wonderful situation, though I feel very sorry for the 9 million pounds of beef that have been recalled, and some of those are coming from some of our small meat producers in the region. We don't quite know if it's all going to be recalled or if they're ever going to be able to use it again. But in the end, I actually know Dave Evans, and I've been in meetings with him for years about buying this piece of property, and he's never been able to afford it because the family always asked for too much. So for some strange reason, in the untold story, if you know of the story, is why did the family sell? And I don't know if selling washes their hands from the controversy of basically slaughtering cows with cancer is the reason why the USDA closed them down, but somehow, I don't know what happened there. That's the untold story. Somebody needs to get to the bottom of that. But Dave Evans from Marin Sun Farms will hopefully continue with this purchase, and we have just scored a sustainable slaughterhouse in the Bay Area, which is amazing. So it's a really good thing, and we'll see. There's a lot more to that story, but go online if you want to check it out. So, what is our motivation as adults? What is our motivation as adult eaters? Well, I come from the idea of being motivated by taste and pleasure, and so in the end, I'm not really, I got to look to see where this PowerPoint is going. We can tell people, let's see what the next one is. We can tell people all we want about not eating something. You know, don't eat this, and don't eat this, and don't eat this, and don't eat this. But that doesn't help, because most of us don't know what to eat anyways. So we don't want to tell people what not to eat. We want to give people options. We want to tell them what to eat. And it's kind of strange about food and cooking. You know, you and I do it at least 3 times a day, and yet most of us don't know anything about it. I mean, if you played golf 3 times a day, you would have the right equipment, you'd be part of a club, you'd read periodicals, you'd take private lessons. You know, where has something so important been so forgotten about? Like somehow it's not important to know how to sharpen your knife. And I know that most of your knives aren't sharp, because I do a lot of cooking privately. I'm a private chef. I work predominantly in Portola Valley, and I also do a lot of corporate wellness programs. So I go out to corporations, and basically you'll see kind of a mini what I do in corporations for wellness. So please bring me in for your next wellness thing. So I love this thought. You know, Americans, you know, Europeans eat the best food they can afford. Americans eat the cheapest food that won't kill us. And it's true. So, you know, what motivates us is a good thought, because now we know that from the American Society of Addictive Medicine, last year or 2 years ago, finally came out that addiction isn't about a substance. Addiction isn't about marijuana or methamphetamine or heroin or alcohol or money or power or sex or, you know, it's anything can be addictive, they say. It's what the brain does. It's the brain's response to something. So food can be addictive. And the way that, you know, many of us eat is that we kind of get in a habit of doing things, right? We are hardwired for habit. So what's interesting about food and what they know now about brain science is we eat something and we don't even have to eat it. Say it's a chocolate chip cookie. And what we think about a chocolate chip cookie, or we walk by the chocolate chip cookie store, and or we smell it. And what happens is our brain lets out some serotonin that basically calls us to go after that thing. It's the thing that makes rats jump over fires and glass. They know if you let this chemical out in your brain, and it doesn't have to be because you're tasting it, you can smell it, you can think about it. No matter what your addiction or your downfall, your weakness is in food, the minute that it kind of comes into your realm, your brain starts to release things, and then all of a sudden you are gonna get that cookie. You know, it does not matter. You've read all the books, you know the sugar's bad for you, all these things, you know it, but you're stuck by your brain, right? And then when you eat that cookie, oh my Lord, I get that cookie and I'm gonna eat it. You release dopamine. You release this, you know, you have a brain orgasm, right? And all of a sudden, everything is good. And then you go back to the same place you started from. It's the cycle of releasing, right? And if we kind of, you know, as we eat, we get into these habits. And it's interesting. I've been changing my diet, even getting it better. I lost 5 pounds last year, those 5 pounds. And I did it in a way by kind of, well, what I did was eat anything you want except for 2 days a week diet. So 2 days a week, pretty much just eating vegetables and fruits, a little bit of protein. And I found that even though I'm a very healthy eater, the sheer fact of kind of changing the way I was eating, even 1 or 2 days a week, made me change the way I was eating even more days a week. I was creating new habits. So I think it's interesting when we start thinking about how habits are formed, what are our habits, and how do we get out of our habits. And the way we get out of it is you have to actually realize you're doing something. You have to find a competing activity. Instead of eating a cookie, maybe I'll go for a walk. And then you also want to kind of override your brain and say, I know I want this cookie, but I'd much rather be on the thinner side than on the fatter side, so I'm going to override my brain. And then having other people help us and support us is a good way too. So, you know, it's interesting. We can move and change our brain. We can rewire our brain. In fact, a study that Ford Motor Company did many, many years ago said that it took 13 times, consecutive times, for us to put, for people, to put seatbelts on when we got in a car. So back in the day when we didn't have to wear seatbelts and when they were moving into that law, the study is that, if you got in a car one time and you put it on, but the next time you didn't, you'd kind of reset to 0. You have to do something 13 consecutive times in order for your brain to start developing these new pathways. Because your brain is a computer. We don't think every time when we get up in the morning, how do I tie my shoe? And the brain doesn't, okay, this is, you got to do that, and now, and then you, and that, no, the brain is a computer. It has a pathway, shoe tie, right? So each morning I get up and tie my shoe and it's not a big deal. It's a habit. I've got a pathway. Food is the same thing. In fact, food is so overstimulative, the sugar and the fat and the salt and all of them together, that it really grows pathways in our brain. And we have to override that, and we can. And it's important to eat, sleep, exercise regular in order to move through and change your brain. Lastly, just a little bit about food income, about the cost of food. Back in 1930, we were spending, a fifth of our income on our food. Now we spend less than 10%. So it shows that we're actually spending less as a total income on our food. And this is also an interesting graph about when people say about cost. It's like, why does a salad cost more than a Big Mac? And this is, what the government tells us to eat and what basically the government funds and subsidizes are exactly the opposite things, right? They tell us we need to eat more fruits and vegetables, and yet they fund more soy, oil, and refined carbohydrates. And it's a mess. And I'm not saying the government is the answer to our problems by any means, but it's just interesting to think that in a general society, what we're told to eat and what we're actually paying for as taxpayers is completely opposite. A couple ways to reduce cost, eliminate your sugar sodas, you can save $1,000. Throw away less. I'm doing some classes in the city of Palo Alto. They're free. They're coming up in the next 3 months. One is leftover makeover, and the other one is do it without meals with no recipes. So if you're in the Palo Alto, look at your water bill. I'm on your water bill or something, and you can find the dates for those classes to learn how to throw away less. If you buy in season, things are cheaper. If you're paying for somebody else to cook your food for you, of course, by going out to eat. And, really, if you compare things, you can definitely eat. If you're not eating that much meat, you can eat well without paying that much. So, we've got a few minutes here, and I'm going to do a little cooking demo. I've got 2 quick cooked vegetables I'm going to do. This is a sampling of what I do when I go out into a corporation. And the whole idea is we're going to do Brussels sprouts and carrots. But the way that I'm teaching now isn't really about recipes, it's about systems. So I've got 2 seasonings I'm going to do. We're going to do a maple Dijon seasoning, and we're going to do a cumin, black mustard seed, lime, jalapeno seasoning. But the thing is, you can do either of these seasonings with either of these vegetables. And so when you're looking to, what do I eat at night? What am I going to eat tonight? I encourage you to go to the farmer's market or go to the store, buy the thing that's fresh, that looks good, the vegetables I'm talking, and then start creating for yourself a list of easy seasonings that you can simply add to the pan in no time at all. And they may work today. We're going to season the Brussels sprouts with the Dijon maple syrup and the carrots with the cumin mustard seed. But tomorrow, I could serve the Brussels sprouts with the cumin mustard seed and the carrots with the Dijon maple syrup. And I have not just those 2 things, which we'll do for you right now. I have a whole list of easy seasonings, actually, and I'll put this on my website, on my blog, which I encourage you to start writing down these easy seasonings or taking this off the blog when it comes. Because the idea is you don't want a recipe. You want things you want to go and get your vegetables fresh, and then you want to just have an ability to be able to season it immediately. And if you season one thing, one vegetable dish in a Mexican way, one vegetable dish in an Asian way, one vegetable dish in an Italian way, for instance, you will be doing yourself a grand favor. And the reason why is because variation causes us to eat more. And the junk food industry knows this, which is why Doritos come in 16 flavors now. Oh, I have that nacho cheese. I really like that one. Ooh, that's really good. And then, in the same bag, they put Cool Ranch. Oh, and I put that. Oh, and all of a sudden, I turn on these other parts of my taste buds, and then because I'm done with the Cool Ranch, now I want another nacho cheese. And and the whole thing is about overstimulating you. They want us to eat more. And so that's why everything has so many flavors. But if we take that same perspective and we move it into vegetables, then you can have a whole plate of vegetables, which is what I do on the Eat Anything You Want Except for 2 Days a Week diet. You have a whole plate of vegetables, but they're seasoned 3 easy ways. I'm going to eat that whole plate of vegetables. It's not about not eating, it's about overeating, or it's about eating vegetables. You want to eat more vegetables. We want to eat less meat, we want to eat more vegetables, we want to eat a little bit of grain, and we need to make sure we have some fat in there too. And, it's all about eating more vegetables. So let's learn a little bit about how to do that. So Brian, do we want to move this? Okay, I'm going to take away the computer. Oh, look at us. Excellent. Move this guy over. Okay. All right. Okay, well, silly me, I forgot to bring my carrot and Brussels sprout as demo. So, I've got it all cut, but I'm going to use an apple instead, just to show you a little cutting technique. Now, when I go into corporations, what I usually have is I have some really cool technology, which we did not bring for you today, which is an iPad that goes down onto the cutting board, and it's a camera, and it becomes then on a television. But we didn't have that technology here, so I'll just have to kind of talk you through. We're not going to be doing a lot of cutting and cooking anyways, but actually what I do want to do is this. Hold on, I just want to wash my hands. Okay. Oh, I have a blog, the Almanac blog. If you go to the Almanac or the Mountain View Voice or the Palo Alto Weekly, you'll see the one for the newspaper, and it's called The Food Party. My personal blog is on my website. My website is laurasteck.com. So think about this as a carrot. Like I said, I forgot my carrot and my Brussels sprout to actually demo the cooking. And what I want to show you is anytime that you're cutting something that's round and that can turn, what you want to do is you want to make sure that you cut yourself a base. So, I don't want this because I can cut myself. I want to cut it like that. And then, if this was, a carrot and if I was going to julienne it, then all of a sudden I can go down like this. And then, if I'm going to julienne it like I did today, then I can just obviously take it and do a julienne. I did it very small because we're in a setting and we don't want to cook long. We want to make it happen fast. So you notice that I cut these very small. But practice your cutting skills, actually. It's fun to cut things small, and the way you change, if you cut your carrot the same way all the time, there's something about cutting it differently that, I don't know, sometimes makes it taste differently. So think about practicing your cutting skills as well as cutting things big and small. When it comes to a salad, it's really funny. If I go to the salad bar and I, put all my stuff into it, and I always put the cauliflower and the broccoli in too, but by the time I get to the bottom of the salad, the things that are left is the cauliflower and the broccoli, because those usually are the big pieces in the salad bar. But if I take those, if I take my vegetables and cut them small and put it in my salad, I will eat them. So it's kind of weird. It's like when it comes to a salad, I want things small, and I have a tendency to eat them more. So just as an FYI. And the same thing with the Brussels sprouts. I had the Brussels sprouts. I cut them very small. You've probably never maybe sauteed a Brussels sprout like this before. I don't really, basically I just took it down and I sliced it thinly. One, because I wanted to cook fast here, but two, because it's an interesting way to do it. Okay. So, for the Brussels sprouts, what I'm going to do is take maple syrup and Dijon mustard, and that's it, and just put it in a little thing. What's the recipe? Well, I actually have, yeah, I have the recipes on this thing here. You can also get that on my blog, or I can send it to Brian or whatever. But the idea is there really is not a recipe. It's like 2 parts Dijon to 1 part maple syrup. But you decide. You decide what you want it to be. I'll say 2 to 1. Just know that if you combine maple syrup and Dijon mustard and put a little salt in it, you have a dressing. Okay. Oops, hold on. Oop. All right, so for this, I'm just going to use olive oil. And it doesn't matter what kind of olive oil I like. What's important is what kind of olive oil you like. We all live in very different palatial worlds. My palate is totally different than yours, just like my fingerprint is. You may not like cilantro or olives. If you don't, I think you're nuts. But it's your opinion. You can do whatever you want. And we taste things very differently. So what's important with oil is that you have maybe a nice bottle of olive oil that you spend a little bit more money on. I don't know, you decide what that might be, $15, $20. Keep that as a finishing agent. Don't cook with your nice olive oil because you cook your flavor out of it. It's a waste of your money. And then you get your other olive oil, $6, $7 a bottle, and you keep that as what you saute with. Do not go to Costco and buy that big thing of olive oil and have it sit in your kitchen for a year. And especially don't store your oil above your oven or your stove. A lot of people, there's that door in the the shelf on the above, and people like put their oil right above where oil goes rancid because of light, heat, and air. So move your oils away from your stoves, and don't buy so much that you're not using and replacing it every 3 months, 4 months, 6 months max. Don't have all this oil just sitting there. Okay, so we'll put some oil in. And I'm going to put my Brussels sprouts. How many people? We might have to go round 2, which is fine. And while that's sauteing up, now what's important when sauteing is put your oil in your pan, heat your pan, put your oil in your pan, mix your vegetables, whatever it is in, and then let them be. I used to have a cooking teacher. I studied at the Culinary Institute of America, the School of Natural Cookery, and the Vega Macrobiotic Studies Center. I worked in restaurants for years, but I haven't worked in restaurants in years. The last restaurant I worked in was the Flea Street, it was the Left Bank in 2000, and before that I worked at the Flea Street Cafe around here. I don't work in restaurants anymore. And one of my cooking teachers used to come up and if you were stirring, people have a tendency to stir, they're constantly stirring. No, just don't bother the vegetables. What you want, the reason why that thing says keep water as far away from vegetables as possible is because vegetables have secrets. Vegetables have secrets. And the secret with a vegetable is that vegetables are sweet. Vegetables are sweet. But most of us don't know that because most of us boil and steam our vegetables. And why that's an issue is because the vegetable secrets come out at a temperature of 330 degrees Fahrenheit or higher, right? So an onion is sweet. It's not, but if we caramelize it, the sugar's brown and it becomes sweet. We can do that with any vegetable, but we need that temperature of 330 degrees Fahrenheit. So are you smarter than a 5th grader? What temperature does water boil at? 212. So throughout the chemical addition of moisture, your temperature won't get hot enough if you boil and steam your vegetables to bring out that secret. right? It's chemistry. You need 330 degrees or higher. You need the vegetables to be touching the heat. Where they touch the heat is where they're going to start browning. We want that. And if I'm constantly stirring, they're not doing that. So how do I get that temperature? I get it through sautéing. I also get it through roasting, grilling, or broiling. Why am I putting this cover on? Because I want this to go faster. I actually want them to brown. I want them to get a little, they're kind of creating their own moisture. And if for any reason this wasn't cooking, and I wanted to add in some moisture, but I didn't want to pour water in, what's a great little tool is just a spray bottle. You can have wine in this, soy sauce, you can have water, which is in here, and if I want to create some moisture when I'm cooking, but I don't really want to I can just do that, and then it adds a little bit of moisture without adding a ton of water, and I still keep the temperature up so that I can still make those vegetables brown, basically, is what I want to do. Okay, so I got these guys. If there wasn't as many of you, I would walk around. I actually do have some brown speckles, and that's what I want. I don't want burnt, but brown is good. And I'm going to now just take my maple syrup and mustard. First, I'm going to taste it. Of this pan? You mean of the actual induction burner? Yeah. Oh, what? You have a gas stove. Oh, what's that? You have a gas stove.
Can you wait for the mic, please?
We're going to have a mic. Mike's going to come and ask you that question. I'm going to add some of this in.
Sorry, I'm just wondering if working with a gas range, how would you know when the pan is at the right temperature? You wait for the oil to.
Well, you want about a medium-high heat is what you want, and heat it up for 30 seconds approximately, and you can that should be and then you can add it in. So as far as actually getting it to 330, if you really wanted to find that out, you could use one of those guns and actually shoot it in, lasers. Brian, I had, what happened to the podium? Oh, okay. Anyway, so that's our first dish, and what I'm going to do is put it in this bowl and do the second dish, and then we'll serve you both together. So it won't be quite hot, and if we need more, then I'll saute more. But, basically you have Brussels sprouts. I'm sorry?
Can you please wait for the microphone?
Just to be clear, you don't put the sauce in until they're brown.
Right. Because the sauce is going to, immediately basically season it. It doesn't really need to thicken very much. And so, yeah, you want to brown it and then add your sauce. So what did that take? That took a couple minutes at the most, right? Okay, so now I'm going to do the carrots. And the carrots, I'm going to use a little peanut oil. I like peanut oil. You probably don't use it that much. I like it. And then I'm going to add some mustard seeds and cumin seeds. I don't know, maybe half a teaspoon, probably a teaspoon, just right into the oil. I'm going to let those toast.
You can tell when the oil is hot enough if you splash a spray of water at it, and if it bubbles or spits, then it's hot enough.
So I added my julienne carrots. We're on an angle here, so the oil keeps going down to the other side. Maybe I'll add a few more. To that, I'm going to add a little bit of smoked salt, which is kind of a fun thing out there. So many delicious, interesting new salts out on the market. Just let that starting to cook. I'm going to take my jalapeno pepper, which I don't have to, but it's something, if you got, it's always nice, if you like a little bit of heat, and I don't think jalapenos are actually even that hot, but some like it hot. It's always good to have a little pepper around the kitchen, Have a serrano, have a jalapeno, because they just add a certain element of, but you don't have to, obviously. So, again, the thing is I'm doing this with the carrots. I could do this exact same thing with the Brussels sprouts. I also have a list of 25 other very simple seasonings that you can do. So when you go to the farmer's market, you buy what looks good, and then you season it however you look on your list. And you've got these ingredients in your cabinet already, so then it's just a matter of, and if it takes just a few minutes to do each, then you can do 2 vegetables easily. And then you eat more vegetables, and that's the goal. The goal is to eat more vegetables. Okay, so let that just kind of cook up a little bit. Again, if I want to add a little bit of moisture, I don't want to add water, but I want to add some moisture so that that steam kind of busts through the cell walls. Do that. This is a great thing for a grill too. And then I'm going to finish that up with, just because I've got it in my kitchen, a lime or lemon. Have these things in your kitchen too all the time. This is a wonderful handy dandy little thing. I've only started to use it like a year and some ago. These squeezers are just perfect. Great gifts for people. Really a fun thing. And yeah, and then we'll put a little bit more salt in it. And I'm going to finish that up with, I'm just going to drizzle on a few. I had these in my kitchen. These are pumpkin seeds toasted with some cashews and, just kind of a mixture of all the extra little nuts I had. So I'm just going to throw some of those in too. And that is my dish. All right, so we're going to, maybe I can have somebody help me do up a few of the plates. You can come up here and get a plate. Maybe that's a good way to do it. Oh, lovely. I would love you to help me. And if you, my dear, would just like to start putting those on plates. And then I may have to saute up some more if we don't have enough for everybody. But, so that's it. So, what do I want to say? I want to take your questions, and we want to focus this out. But maybe I'll just say that. Yeah.
I'm trying to, I think it's a good idea to eat coconut oil. Eat coconut oil. Do you know a good coconut oil recipe?
Yeah.
Something you like to cook in coconut oil? What do you cook in coconut oil?
Anything, actually. Sweet potatoes. I roast things now a lot with coconut oil. I just got this new recipe for, you make your own macaroons. So you go over to Trader Joe's and you get a bag of a coconut and then a bag of freeze-dried strawberries and a little bit of coconut oil. You whirl it all up in the Cuisinart, and then you make these little cookies out of it. It's great. So coconut oil is great. Coconut oil is such an interesting thing, because back when I was at the natural food school, coconut oil was like, oh, it was really bad, Now coconut oil has become good, and so it's just interesting to think about that. Anybody else?
Yeah, I wanted you. Can you say something about the sodium, because there seems to be new research that conflicts with the old research, which is something I've always wondered, is every 5 years they all change their minds about what's healthy and what's not.
Isn't it true, isn't it? We can eat, sodium isn't as bad as it was.
And fat is better now. And so how do you deal with this constant churn of new information and sort of know what's right for your body and in your health?
Well, they say, will someone help me pass this out? Anyone? Come on up and just start passing them out to people. They say that our knowledge of nutrition doubles once every 18 months, because that's when the science comes out, the studies come out. And, it's true, it's not a finished science. And the problem with nutrition is that I could have 50 times different. They all say almost, you could actually have up to 50 times different requirements. So I may need 50 times more vitamin C than you do. Hold on, let me put these out. Let me hold that. Don't take that yet, because we're going to put the carrots on it. So, the problem is that gravity is a constant, but nutrition is not, between, subjects. No, I'm going to, oh, that's for you. Very good. So what do? Everything in moderation, including moderation. That's what I do. Everything in moderation, including moderation. Don't eat too much of anything. Don't not eat things. And eat more vegetables.
I have 2 questions, hopefully very fast. The first one is a book I ran into one of the San Mateo County libraries. It's in Spanish, and I was thinking about people that don't speak English, and it's called comida sana, comida rica, which means saying food that is healthy and food that is delicious, by a woman by the name of Marisa Fernandez. And I was wondering if you, how can I find out if this is a good book to tell my non-English speaking friends about the book, and they can get from a bunch of San Mateo County libraries. That's my first question. The second question is, my late wife and I used to go to this restaurant that was in Portola Valley called Iberia, which is owned by Jose Luis Relinque, and it has moved, I don't know, a few years ago to in front of the Menlo Park train station. And I was wondering if that is the food that is healthy, if you know about it.
The first question is, how do you find out if a book is good, a particular book that's in Spanish? Anyone know about this book? No, I was saying, has anyone heard about that book? I would go to, the first thing is to go to Stanford, go online and see what people say about it. There's got to be, Spanish health organizations, and I can't pull that out. Anyone know a Spanish health organization in the Bay Area? There's got to be there. Google Spanish health organization. It'll come up and see what they say about it. That would be the first thing. The second thing is, what was the second question?
That used to be in Menlo Park, Iberia, the restaurant.
Oh, do we have the microphone? Oh, okay.
It used to be in Portola Valley.
Hold on a second.
You have to get on a microphone. So anyways, as you're tasting that, if you taste the lime or you don't, if it's too much, if it's too hot, if you want more salt, it's not salty. I mean, obviously, it's very easy. I didn't even taste it. I have no idea what it tastes like. But, you've got you like it. Okay, well, that's good. You've got two very different seasonings here. And you can imagine kind of going from the nacho cheese Dorito to it's the same kind of idea. Variation causes us to eat more. That's one of the goals you want.
The other one is a restaurant that used to be in Portola Valley called Iberia. Mm-hmm. It's owned and still owned by Jose Luis Relinque, who's the chef. And it has moved to Menlo Park. It's in front of the Menlo Park train station.
Oh, okay.
And it's advertised on KCBS radio and so on, and you can hear Jose Luis talking about the restaurant. And I was just wondering if you've ever been there and if you think it's healthy or not.
I have not. Anybody? What do you think?
Well, we like their octopus.
Can you please wait till you have the mic? Who turned the mic down? You turn it down?
No.
Stop playing with it. It's on? Okay. Please wait for the microphone before you open your mouth.
Yes, it's a bit on the expensive side, but we did like their octopus sautéed in olive oil. It was excellent. And typical of many Spanish foods, a lot of seafood, but very, very good. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep.
You had said you would also tell us about knife sharpening.
Oh, yeah.
Is that a quick...
I'll tell you about knife sharpening.
Sorry,
Sure.
knife sharpening.
Let me do that quickly. When you use your knife, you have microfibers in the blade that bend over, which is why you lose your edge. You want to keep those microfibers straight. What you don't want to do in order to achieve that straightness is to sharpen your knife every time, because you can actually over sharpen a knife, and then it becomes, it no longer holds an edge. I know this. I actually did trash one of my Wusthof knives, and they don't hold an edge any longer. So then you send it back to the company. They sent me one. So the way you really keep a knife sharp is you use two things in concert. One is an 8-inch or larger chef's knife, and you'll notice that mine is, this is this thing. I was like, what's on my face? I actually use a very cheap knife now. In fact, I've got them for sale here for $5. I have all kinds of knives at home, and I still use the cheap knife. The reason why is they're easy to keep sharp. And no matter if you have your $100 knife or your $5 knife, you take your knife, and for every half hour of cutting time, which means it might be you You steal your knife 1 time a night. You steal it 2 times a night. You may, if you'd ever cook, you might steal it 1 time a month. But hopefully you'll be doing it at least a couple times a week, if not every day. And you take your knife and you take this honing stick or steel. And this is the thing, when you got married, they gave you that whole knife rack and you set it on your counter. You haven't pulled it out since your shower or something. Take that thing out of the knife wrap, and it's called a honing rod or stick. And you do at a 20-degree angle. So if you figure this is 90, right, and that's 45, so 20. You go from the back to the front 10 times on one side. And then I turn to the other side. And then go from the back of the knife to the front 10 times. And I'm pushing against it, and I can actually feel it, 20 degrees, 5 times, 2 times, and then 10 times alternating sides. And I do that for every half hour of cutting time. So again, you might do it a couple times. Then I sharpen it. Depends. People say different things. Every 3 months, every 6 months. It really depends on how often how your knife holds an edge. So that's variation. But you don't sharpen your knife all the time. You use these 2 things. Everyone must have these 2 things, and you must use them all the time. So if you don't, go get it. If you need a cheap knife, come up for $5, and I don't have steels, but yeah, that's how you keep a knife sharp.
Okay, now we're at the last question. Lunch is ready, and somebody's already been selected.
Yeah, I've heard contrary opinions on fruit. When is it good and when is it not good?
Fruit? Yeah, I actually. There's been, for many years, you don't eat fruit with protein. You want to eat fruit by itself. Fruit is best in the morning by itself. And I still tend to that. In fact, I used to not eat fruit in the morning very much. But now I've been on, this is one of the ways my habits have changed. It has amazed me. Eat anything you want except for 2 days a week diet. I get up in the morning and I have fruit with maybe a little nut or something in it. I never used to have a bowl of fruit in the morning. Only fruit with a little bit of protein. Now it's kind of become my favorite thing, which is interesting. Somehow my brain has shifted, because I used to like the bagel, or I don't know if it's because I'm getting older or if it's because I really changed something in my brain. So I'm not a nutritionist, nor am I a chemist, so I can't talk from that perspective. I can say that I think fruit in the morning is great. I also have a piece of fruit every once in a while in the afternoon. But I don't know. For me, if I eat dinner, what I don't like is it just doesn't feel right to have like fruit after dinner. Like, some people serve fruit for dessert or something, like after dinner, after meat. I don't know. Somehow that just doesn't set right. So, I don't know. Anyone want to answer that question for their own? Forget the fruit. Yeah. Eat the fruit in the morning, chocolate at night. Exactly. Well, thank you again for listening and coming.